was only adequate that we would come to have some cacao while talking about cacao. World Schooling, the Chronicles. So cacao is part of the culture here, therefore it's everywhere. There's so many artisans, there's so many people who care about cacao and its history, how it's produced and where it comes from, and they're really big on farm to bar. We have experienced it in many ways. Today specifically, we're talking about our world schooling experiences with this. We went to several classes and have learned so much about cacao that we had to share with you guys.
Cacao, grown in rainforests, on trees, in many different kinds, near the equator. To better understand the differences between the two classes, I want to take you through the actual process before we begin. Cacao is picked off the tree as a fruit. The seeds are harvested and either washed and dried or fermented and dried. After that, they're toasted on a comal or out in the sun, and then after that they're easily shelled and then crumbled into nibs. From there, they either stick it in a machine to separate the cocoa butter from the cocoa powder, and then use both things separately. Cocoa butter is used in many cosmetics, and cocoa powder can be used in drinks or to make chocolate by adding things like milk, sugar, and fat. The other process, and the one more popular here in Mexico by artisans, is taking the whole nibs and processing them into either a bar of cacao, which has no additives, or chocolate, which would have sugar added. Back in the day, they used to do these on stone rollers. Now they do it on either a hand-powered machine, or for extra smooth chocolate, they put it in a machine acquired from India they use and make it extra silky smooth.
Hello. We went to this place. It looked like somebody's home, but it was actually a factory where La Academia Mexicana del Cacao makes their chocolate bars, or cocoa bars, I should say, because there's a difference.
It almost looked like a small personal library. Like the front part of it looked like a little personal library, and then...
Actualmente. Algo que se vive. En México seguramente
I
estaba.
think you said that all those books were on cacao and the people who farm cacao and how Mayans used to use cacao and different ways to use cacao. All of them were on cacao.
Yeah, it was like all the history of cacao. And every time we would ask a question, he would pull out a book and be like, oh, in this book they have this, and in this book they explain that. There's some books that he referred to as the Bible of certain tribes.
He took the fruit, like the whole cacao pod, cracked it open with his bare hands, and then he pulled off the top part, and what came out looked like all the seeds were clustered together, and they had like a off-white flesh, and they stayed in the shape of a cacao pod, but you could tell that they were the seeds. And it had like at least like 18 seeds all clustered together. And then once he got it out of the pod, he separated the seeds and put them onto little crates and put them in front of everyone. So he told us to suck on the seeds to get them.
So what do you guys think?
It's good.
What do you think the taste is like?
Guanábana, which is also known as sour salt.
Didn't taste like much, but I like the texture.
It is mildly flavored.
Qué lindo el diseño de adentro.
Es un riñón.
So the class was completely interactive. He wanted us to hear, smell, taste. So every time he presented something, he would let us use all of our senses to fully embrace the experience.
He took us through the history of cacao and the 4 stages that it has gone through, from the Mayans and how they used it as a currency to present day Hershey and Nestle and all that. He showed us what the fermented seed looked like, what the washed seed looked like, and what the shells looked like, and then proceeded to make a drink out of the shells.
So after we tasted the cacao nibs, he let us smell the shells that the cacao nibs came in. He said that they were often used to like add fragrance to things because it had a very potent smell, like very, very strong cacao smell, stronger than the cacao nibs themselves. So he took the shells and he put them in this coffee contraption.
La sustancia activa más importante energéticamente y antioxidante.
He also produces cocoa powder, so we wrapped the cocoa powder and he gave us some samplings. He had different percentages of cocoa powder to sugar, and he made us drinks with this cocoa powder. Molded his class to us. Any questions we had, he would answer, and look for things to show us either within his books or even the shells, was because we asked a question and he went, got some from the back and brought them to us so we could experience them. Then we talked about the process of actually creating the bars, and we ended the class with him giving us some bars so we can take.
Este lo fileteamos, lo derretimos y se mete al melanger.
It was good. It has a very specific fruity flavor to it. It's very fruity. Doesn't it like fruity?
Super smooth.
Sí, claro, pero déjame ver.
So overall, how would you guys rate this experience?
10 out of 10. I would say one of my favorite parts was listening to the way that he spoke about cacao and the people who originally used it and the respect and kindness that he spoke with, and how much, like, just to see his passion for something was really nice. I liked learning about everything. I thought it was cool how he incorporated his history and anthropology into his cacao and chocolate making.
So to wrap up, this class included the tasting of the actual fruit. We got to taste the differences between nibs that came from different fruits and were processed slightly different. We got to make drinks with cacao powder with different percentages of sugar added, and we got to taste well-refined cocoa bars. We got to make infusions with the shells.
So this brings us to the next class. The next class took us through the actual process of creating the bars. Second class, he sat us down and he took us through the history.
He also spoke about the difference between fermentation and washing the cacao seed. And he let us smell the differences. And there was a very distinct difference between the washed seeds and the fermented seeds. The fermented seeds had a very strong scent, and the washed seeds had a weaker one. Like, it was still present, but it was much weaker than the fermented seeds.
Yeah, we also got to smell nibs and the shells and what else did we smell?
That was it.
Oh, the cocoa flour. The little flowers that come out before the fruit grows.
And he also taught us about the fact that most cocoa powder that you see on the market these days is made out of the shells.
La palabra cocoa. Realmente esa palabra no existe, de hecho la empieza a utilizarse para la venta.
Cocoa powder.
In America, in the United States, when they say cocoa instead of cacao, it's because they use the shells and put it together.
Este producto que es de mucho menor calidad.
Ay, eso yo no lo sabía. Yo pensaba que era traducción.
De hecho, en ese producto
He just verbally explained it to us. But then we got to get hands on.
Then we toasted the cacao seeds on a comal and peeled them. Some were easy because you could just like twist them and like squish it a little bit and the skin would just like pop off. But others I would kind of break in half.
The insides would crumble into the nibs.
See on the camera.
el movimiento que le vamos a estar dando va a ser constante para que no se nos vaya a llegar a quemar unos más que otros. ¿Okay? Vamos a utilizar un tostado medio bajo. Cuidado porque ahorita sí está bastante caliente.
Be careful, this is really hot.
Hay que checar. Justo en medio y después darle un pequeño giro a la cascarilla.
I recommend you taste the nibs.
I mean, it's chocolate. Why are you not eating it?
El cacao siendo una semilla,
Because there was a period of time that cacao was just used for trade, but then after a while, cacao changed to be an actual mean, like a monetary means, or like a coin, equivalent to a coin.
Yeah.
So it would be something that would be counted. So like a certain amount of beans would be equivalent to a certain amount of money, kind of thing.
In one of I dropped that basically.
And now comes the fun part, because what did we do next? That made me break into a sweat.
We grinded the Casas.
And what was that like?
It was difficult at first. It got easier the more we grinded them.
Grinded and grinded and grinded and grinded. And after we were done, we would put it back into the machine and grind it again. How many times did we do that?
3.
He said that usually we would run it a lot more times to get it even smoother, but I think we were tired. Were you tired?
He said that it would be too short.
Gracias.
He said he thought we were too tired. He said it was too much work for us. We were all very tired at that point too. And by the third time, it was getting even more difficult. Like, it was easier to twist the handle, but since it was creamier and the oil inside it was melt, it kept getting stuck and like clogged up on the grinder part. So you have to go with a spoon to clean it off, so it actually grind all the way.
12 because it's supposed to be a much better camera.
Come on, Kira. Puedes hacerlo con las 2 manos, Kira.
grinded it the third time, he put it in a double boiler to get it to melt, and then put it into bars. Obviously, because the cocoa butter was melted at this point, we had to put it in the refrigerator to wait. And then while we waited, we had to make the cocoa drink.
He put the hot water in the pitcher, and then he added the cacaos.
Right. So once he did that, he had this special mixing thing that was specifically for cacao, and it almost looked like one of those tools they use to serve honey. So that's specifically for giving it like little bubbles, like foam, aeration. So once it was like a little tool where you roll like this in his hands, and we roll it super fast, and then at the top, it would mix it together, and then at the top you had a layer of foam that was produced by the little tool. He also added the flowers to the cacao, but he said that mine people used to use it as a substitute for vanilla.
¿De qué color son en el árbol? ¿Amarillas?
Blancas y amarillas.
No.
Siento la flor.
Se siente
When people look at you while you eat.
How does it
Or
taste?
recording. It's so good. You can actually taste the flavor of the flour, which is a little bit vanilla-y mixed with
Maple.
like a, well, she said maple, but for me it's more like a rose taste.
For me, it's a raisin flavor.
Raisin, yes.
So to recap, Class 2 included a brief history of cacao. We got to roast the beans, peel the beans, grind them over and over again until smooth by hand, and then make them into bars. We also got to try a drink at the end.
So how would you rate that class?
10 out of 10. I like the second class more because we actually did stuff. Like, we peeled the cacao seeds and grinded them, made the chocolate bars.
I would also give it a 10 out of 10. I really liked like the hands-on experience. Like I enjoyed the other one, it was very informative, but I really enjoyed the hands-on aspect of this one. Also, the guy who was teaching the class was a really nice person and was really happy to answer any of our questions, which is always great. And
He was very accommodating.
yeah, he was a very lovely person to be around, so that also added to the enjoyment of the class.
I personally like the combination of both. I thought that together they kind of gave us a complete idea of the process of creating these bars, because one took us through the whole cultivation process, and the second one took us through a more hands-on approach of the actual bar making process. So I thought together